final thing for today that I'm going to chat briefly about, and we've been hitting on it as we go along, is motivation stuff. So obviously, everything we've got going so far doesn't work without motivation. And we've talked about some key principles of motivation again, and movement is a big one, right? Don't stand still, make movement a part of your rewards, right? Hunger, so with puppies, since we're using food primarily at this stage, they got to be hungry. You got to control the quality of the rewards, right? You may have to find different stuff, right? Quantity, sometimes if you're using really little pieces, it's not satisfying enough and you need to use bigger pieces. Lots of times with puppies, we try to use very small pieces because they can chew them faster and they don't get full as fast. So my training sessions inherently go better, but sometimes they're small enough that the puppy's like, you want me to do what for that little tiny piece of whatever? That's not worth it, right? And so controlling the size of the piece or the quantity of the rewards, sometimes delivering 2 or 3 or 4 pieces in a row right after a behavior, that increases the value of it. And then there's going to be a variety of things that we have to do to manipulate the dog's energetics. And we've talked a little bit about this. If your puppy's out in the yard playing with the other dog all morning and you want to train, they may not be motivated anymore. They're tired, right? And same thing, if you take your dog for long walks, if you've done too many training sessions, if you have a play session, a lot of those kinds of things can, of course, make it harder for your dog to manifest motivation for the things you want. So remember, all of the stuff we've talked about so far will be more challenging if your dog's not in a good motivational state. So we're constantly managing our dogs to preserve motivation. Recognizing, and I mentioned this morning, that if your dog's in the right state of mind motivationally, they're going to be busy and pushy and hungry, and so you have to watch and manage their environment so that they don't do things you don't want them to do. You get a dog. And remember, this is also a temporary state. Depending on what you're doing with your dogs as you go forward, especially if you're raising a pet dog, this is appropriate for pet dogs as well, but as you go along with the pet dog, once they start to understand the basic behaviors, then I don't need as much motivation anymore, right? Then I begin to say, okay, by the way, you also have to do certain things and all that kind of thing, and I don't have to keep them at that state of mind. So the point where they don't know anything and I'm kind of building them up and making them a little bit obnoxious is short-lived, thankfully. It's a few months in the dog's life for the most part. That will be a longer period of time if you're raising a working dog of some kind. So sport dogs and things like that we build motivation for longer. We take longer to bring our pieces in, longer to complete the behaviors because we want them done in a very specific way, and we'll keep the dog in a higher state of arousal in more different circumstances, for more common circumstances. So your goals will dictate how far you need to go with the motivation as you go forward, but you're going to need to keep that in the back of your mind. So you're going to constantly manage your puppy for maximum motivation. Another thing that I'll show you right before we quit today, Allie, hey, grab your puppy again, would you mind? And that way the puppy's kind of perfect for demonstrating this. I'm going to show you another technique for puppies once they're comfortable with the harness. If you're struggling a little bit with their effort in the luring, you can use restraint in the luring to make them try harder in the luring too. And so when you're luring your puppy, once they're comfortable, you've been doing your restrained recalls and they're comfortable on the harness and they'll pull on the harness for your restrained recalls, you can have an assistant hold a line on the harness, and while you lure them, the assistant puts a little tension on the harness, like they're going to try to pull the puppy away from the food in your hand, and when the puppy tries harder, they let the puppy surge forward. And so it's possible, if the dog is a little tentative about their luring, that we can use a little bit of restraint to frustrate them and make them try harder. So if you're luring the puppy and the puppy's not trying very hard, and I hold the puppy back a little with the harness, they feel like you're going to get away, and they try harder. And when you let them go, they come in and grab it like, oh God, it was getting away from me. And it makes them feel like they're going to lose it. Like I put a little bit of tension, and they're like, oh God, it's going to get away from me. And they'll actually try harder. So if the puppy feels a little tentative to you and you want to build a little motivation, I'll show you this technique. It can help a lot. This is another place where we use restraint. All right. So just go ahead and engage your puppy a little. Give me your leash. Good. Perfect. All right. So now she's got her puppy. Now start luring. And you keep going regardless of what I do. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Don't keep going.
Pull away.
Yeah, yes. I'm holding the dog back, right? So in that spot, I'll make the dog pull me. So she's luring, and as soon as, go ahead and start luring. As soon as she starts luring, I put a little back pressure, and then I feel the dog lean in, and then I let the dog surge forward and get it.